Well, good morning, dear friends. Welcome to PIMC on a beautiful, cool, sunny Sunday morning. You bicycled, pretty cool. Cold hands. So hello to those of you joining us over the internet. Hello to Paul up in the heaven realms. Thank you for doing that. I guess that makes me think, thank you to all of our volunteers. I've seen at least 4 or 5 people bustling around this morning getting ready for our gathering. It's a lot. So, I invite you to do one of two things. Either sit quietly in meditation, or turn to your neighbor and tell them one thing that you're grateful for this morning, and introduce yourself a little bit. And if maybe 2 things. One thing you're grateful for in general, and one thing about your particular personality that you're grateful for. It's a challenging thing, but you see. Please join me in turning off your great distractor. At least this part of it. Where'd it go? Cancel that. Airplane. There we go. So, did you find something? It sounded like you found something to speak about. So let's see if we can do this, how we do this. Anybody here for the first time, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. My goodness, it's a bumper crop. Why today? It's always a good story. Why? I'd like to propose that there are always at least 2 stories. There's the one story which is why, in this case, you think you're here. And there's another deep story which is that there's a part of all of us that's so hungry to wake up. And that it longs for awakening. It longs for more love and compassion. And that we live with this delusion that we're making the decisions. But the very fact that the question came up, should I go or not, really reflects that you're on a quest. And that quest is driven from within. There's a great book written in the 18-somethings, The Call from Within by Karl Fried Graf von Durkheim. It's called The Call from Within. And there's something powerful happening so far beyond stress management and psychological well-being, which is, it's that question, who am I? Who am I and what am I doing here? So I hope this coming here today is of use to you. And if this isn't a great fit, a good feeling and so on, please keep looking, because in Portland, we have representatives of all the great traditions, all the great mystical traditions. So refuge in the Buddha, in us which is awake. Refuge in the Dharma, when I'm awake, when I'm aware and noticing, what do I discover? What are the facts? What's real? And then refuge in the Sangha is the community of practice, which we could look around. Here it is. It's also the lineage. There's been something like between 120 and 150 generations, teacher to student, since the Buddha. And that's a place to take refuge to. And then, of course, there's the refuge in all of life. We are the universe peopling, just as the universe wails and Douglas firs. And so that's our real family. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. Once more. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, as soon as we pause, we come nose to nose, toe to toe, with the human mind. Our own. One of my early teachers, a man named Munindra in India, said, "You want to study the human mind? Sit down, pay attention, you have one." And this is first-hand knowledge, it's not an intellectual analysis or a study somehow through instruments. The capacity of the object of observation is not a telescope or anything like that. It's this mind, this awareness, this concentration. And the objects of observation are the body, the experience of pleasant and unpleasant at the sense doors, the actual thoughts and moods, memories, and we start really simple, really grounded, so to speak, with awareness of the body where it touches the floor or the cushions. Awareness of the body as hands. Or perhaps pay attention to the region of the body you think of as your face. Not an image, not a fantasy, a remembrance of seeing it in a mirror, but the actual experience of life in the face. And since the moment of your birth and until the moment of your death, the body breathes. Coming home to the actual experience of breathing in and breathing out. We can notice how each breath begins, how it rises to fullness, changes direction, declines, and then disappears. And we are attending to the actual sensations. Not an image, not a fantasy, but the actual experience of chest and abdomen, or the nostrils. having this intended home base in the present, in the body. Immediately illuminates what a strong agenda the mind has. It has opinions and conversations and judgments of self and other. It spins the web that we know as the past and the web that we know as the future. Stories of what if. Without training, we identify with these really fantasies, these imaginations. We don't even know they're happening. And so the first step is to wake up to just how much the mind wanders into moods and opinions, judgments, feelings, memories. And also to notice that there is a kind of miracle, which is that awareness illuminates these phenomena, mind phenomena, and suddenly there's some degree of freedom, subjective experience of freedom. So we can come back to the breath. We can think of the practice as one of intimacy, self-intimacy. How close can you become with that breath? How warmly can you embrace the actual sensations of the body as it breathes? requires a persistent effort and intention. To come home, to target the breath and make some effort to stay there. But the effort is very delicate. Almost everyone strives too hard. And then we create a self that tries too hard, which we're not even observing. We don't know it's there. Notice whether the tone of the mind is wakefulness or sleepiness. Perhaps the tone is disliking or liking. And at some point, the inevitable discomfort will arise, which signals our mammalian, reptilian roots it's time to move. But since we're trying to do something bigger, deeper, we may decide to stay put in the face of pain. So we bear with uncomfortable feelings. We actually sometimes turn awareness to inhabit those uncomfortable or painful feelings 100%. We do this so that we realize that there's pain and then there's suffering that's added on top, which we can see, we can recognize. So when you can, stay with the breath. When you can't, you can turn toward that object. Perhaps it's a pain in the leg or the back or the heart. Take that as your meditation object. Study it. Inhabit it. again, the mind falls into the trances of daily life, the trance of the personality, trance of the past, of anxiety, of desire, fear, strategic thinking for the future, planning what I'll say in the next conflictual relationship moment. All of these become, quote, visible, perceivable in time. The more clearly they're seen, the more obvious it is that no one thinks them. They think themselves. And rather than a great loss, this is a huge relief. Please now notice, if you can, perhaps the entirety of your body in one glance. One great ball of life. Notice where the breathing happens, where the pressure between the floor and your body exists. And notice where the eyes are, the eyes as physical sensations. And over the course of the next couple of minutes, please notice how it is that you, quote, decide, and how it comes to pass that the command is issued, the intention is issued for the eyes to open, and then they open. How does that happen? Watching how that which we take to be you appears to make decisions about opening the eyes. notice in that mysterious opening of the eyelids that seeing starts. Seeing. Seeing and awareness of seeing. Before I hand over the microphone to Jim, I want to give you an update on the ramp that will, before long, result in a door where those 3 windows are, and then a ramp down to the living room and another ramp down to the street. Who knew that such things take so long? Some people knew. We're now at the point that we have one more meeting, it would seem. Avi's been arranging this meeting with the person who did the drawings, the contractor, and the engineering person. In order to do something like this, you have to have an engineer go over it and stamp that all the things are the right size and so on. So we're having that meeting and some final decisions, and then it goes to the city. And hopefully it will move quickly through the city, licensing or with permitting. And the reason for this, what feels to me like slow movement, is everybody in the building trades is completely slammed. I spoke with the fellow who's doing the engineering work, and he was wiped. I think he said he had worked for 6 weeks straight. Because everyone, I mean, if you look around the city, it's obvious. It's just. So we're part of that trend, but before long, we'll have access to the building. Access that just anyone can operate themselves and not be dependent on our aluminum ramp. So from here, Jim Dalton will do some mindful movement, and then Avi will do some announcements, and then I'll be back. And then after that, we have tea and coffee and some really nice people, and fine people to talk with in the living room. So, thank you for being here, Mr. Dalton.
So, we get in touch with our feet once more. Feeling the contact with the floor. The floor is in contact with more structures that go down into the earth. So we're really in touch with the earth. And we just begin by pouring all of our energy into one leg, and then pouring energy into the other leg and just shifting the weight back and forth, and notice how many sensations arise out of that choice. We choose to drift over here and engagement happens. And then we choose to move over here and we're engaged with the earth. We're doing this all day long as we're walking and eating and drinking and breathing, but we can become very mindful of our interdependence with the earth. And people have been doing that sort of thing for thousands of years. One fellow that we refer to as, I don't know how we refer to him, but anyway, we call this the Tao Te Ching, as if it was a resource from one person. I'm not sure if that's true. But anyway, by a mysterious process, this came to my attention today, so I'm going to read it, and then we'll do some movement. In harmony with, this is number 39 if you're interested in looking it up for yourself. And you'll find lots of different translations, but this is Stephen Mitchell. In harmony with the Tao, the sky is clear and spacious. The earth is solid and full. All creatures flourish together, content with the way they are, endlessly repeating themselves, endlessly renewed. So we're pouring energy in here, endlessly repeating ourselves, and endlessly renewed. When man, well, this was written a long time ago, when man interferes with the Tao, the sky becomes filthy, the earth becomes depleted, the equilibrium crumbles, creatures become extinct. The master views the parts with compassion because he understands the whole. His constant practice is humility. He doesn't glitter like a jewel, but lets himself be shaped by the Tao, as rugged and common as stone. So we have this structure here we call the body, and it's being polished by the Tao, as rugged and common as stone, but very precious. So we sink into the earth and then rise up, breathing in, feeling the harmonious blending of all the sensations in the wrists, the arms, the shoulders, the knees, the feet. All the parts are held with compassion. Easeful breathing, easeful movement. And there's harmony in this world of 2 arms, 2 legs, and a coconut on top. Lifting and opening. A different way of harmonizing, giving the lungs more capacity. And then reaching up and painting rainbow in the sky. Then releasing the arms, feeling the heaviness and earthiness sink, sink, sink across the wrists, come up the center, and separate clouds. We're doing a fine job today. There's no clouds anywhere, in my view anyway. Then turning to the side, we open our hands, palms up, bring one hand in and push with the other. Then turn that up, bring one back and push from the back. So pushing and pulling simultaneously, harmony among all the tendons and ligaments and muscles and bones. A simple phrase, push-pull, becomes all these sensations. Then we shift and use the word water wheel and feel that. So a word becomes an image, and image becomes sensations. Shifting the weight, we lift the heel and the arm. Choosing slow, soft movements creates harmony in our world, this body world. Turning to gaze at the moon, releasing, lifting, gazing, releasing. Pressing across. Noticing how the feet engage when we stretch to one side. And reach across like you might be looking at a mirror, then the other hand towards the earth, come across the center line, all the way to the other side, and switch. And feel the softness in the shoulders, wrists. What we're lifting is a cloud that drifts across the sky. What follows the cloud is a shadow on the earth. So we choose a particular image and we become a bridge between heavenly energy and earthly energy. Basically, we're doing that all day long, but we don't always notice. Then we'll step out and splash in the sea. Notice a change in the mood when you make larger movements. Fuller breath. Water everywhere. You don't have to clean it up. It's free. Riding the waves. Opening the arms, turning the wrists. We have these little figure eights going on at the end of the fingers. And back to the center. We'll step out to the other side, splash in the sea. Riding the waves. Opening the arms. back to the center. Feeling the stillness. Where is there life in this standing form? Sink, make a fist, let the dragon rise from the sea, and feel that sense of agency. Then spread the wings. Up on the toes, will soar with the cranes. Then turning the wheel. We change directions. And come back to the center. Again, sensations in a still body. And then playing with the coordination, lifting one arm and one knee and switching. Where's the balance? How does the body know how to do this? We set up a little pattern and it just flows together. Some days. Okay, then gathering from the earth, we release what we don't need, and the earth takes it back and uses it wherever is needed. So we're breathing in what we need and breathing out what other forms of life need in this harmonious exchange. So, one more time with the poem. In harmony with the Tao, the sky is clear and spacious. The earth is solid and full. All creatures flourish together, content with the way they are, endlessly repeating themselves, endlessly renewed. When man or woman interferes with the Tao, the sky becomes filthy, the earth becomes depleted, the equilibrium crumbles, creatures become extinct. The master views the parts with compassion because he understands the whole. His constant practice is humility. He doesn't glitter like a jewel, but lets himself be shaped by the Tao as rugged and common as stone. So if you get a chance, come join me next Saturday and we'll do some more poetry and movement. Thank you.
Yep. Good morning, Sangha. Oh. For those of you who don't know, my name is Avi. I'm community coordinator here, and I'm going to do the very, very ancient ritual of announcements.
I'm going to interrupt you.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to commend this wonderful man to you who works incredibly hard to keep PIMC together and functioning. We were looking the other day at how many steps, you know those advertisements you get in the mail, in the email about come to this workshop? There's more than 15, maybe 20 steps for each one of those things to get an event advertised, and he keeps it. he keeps track of that in here, which is, it's quite remarkable. He is quite remarkable. So, that's it. Yeah, well, let's
Thank you, Robert.
Yay.
Thank you. This is a wonderful community. It is my pleasure to be here. It's just, there's a lot of details. That's all. As anyone who sits in front of a computer all day long knows, there's lots of details. So, speaking of details, most of the things, I'm going to try and run through this. Robert keeps challenging me to try and get through the announcements within 5 minutes. You threw me off there with all of that warm stuff. So there's flyers for a number of these things. Feel free to take a flyer. Feel free to copy the flyers and post them around town so that we can get other people knowing about our wonderful events. So here we go. So today, please join us after Robert's talk. It's our once a month casserole day, our potluck. People have dredged up their age-old, ancient, secret family recipes for us to enjoy. And even if you have brought nothing, please come down and have something to eat and have some coffee and talk with some people. We are a pretty gregarious bunch. Next, next week, on Wednesday the 14th, we've got the November edition of the NVC Practice Group with Doyle and Kirsten. Kirsten is she of the raised hand. If you have any questions about that, NVC is nonviolent communication. If you have any training at all in nonviolent communication, feel free to attend. There's information on the website, and Kirsten can address questions. On Saturday, November 17th, we have our November edition of Buddhist Movie Night, which is going to be Amongst White Clouds, which is a really amazing documentary about Buddhist recluses living up in the mountains of China. It is quite wonderful. That will be on the 17th at 6:30. Also during the day on the 17th, Jim is going to do one of his half-day Qigong retreats here from 10 to 2. If you love what he did for 10 minutes, you'll love what he does for 4 hours. Then on Saturday and Sunday, November 17th and 18th, Robert is doing his Seattle retreat. Details are on the website. You can sign up there. There are 2 friends of our Sangha who are up there who are offering places to stay. One of them is named Sandra. She has room for up to 4 people. Contact me if you want to get in touch with her and find out what's going on. There is another of our friends who has a friend who is wheelchair bound who needs some transportation to and from the retreat, and in exchange you would get free room while you're there. If you want to see about that, please contact me. I'll put you in touch with either of those people. Then on December 1st, first Saturday, day-long retreat at PIMC. We have these on the first Saturday of every month. Details are on the website. Also on Saturday, December 1st, we are having a very, very special film, you might call it a short film festival called On Buddha's Path, which is a series of films called Compassion in Action by an international Buddhist charity called Tzu Chi. And we are really privileged to have them showing this to us. These are going to sell out. Details are on the website. Please get tickets. It is really going to be an amazing show. We've never had anything like this here before. Then on Sunday, December 2nd, we've got our second meeting of our Engaging the Dharma initiative, which is our initiative for taking what we're doing here in this room off the cushion out into the community, finding ways to do that as a Sangha. Please come next Sunday after the Dharma talk. We'll be meeting from 1 to 2:30. Then, also that day, we'll be doing the first monthly mindfulness orientation with Robert, which happens on the first Sunday of every month. Then on Saturday, December 8th, we've got our Stewardship Circle retreat. Details are going to be on the website this week. We've already sent out emails. Even if you are not a stewardship member, it is very easy to join one for any amount of money. It's just a regular monthly commitment of money, and then you can join. Details are there. Then on Sunday, December 9th, we've got our what is rapidly becoming a tradition here, a children's performance of Scrooge, which is a children's performance of the Christmas Carol, which is this wonderful fable. forget about all of the Christmas-specific stuff. It is a wonderful fable about the virtues of generosity. That will be on December 9th, right after the Dharma gathering. A few other things to keep in mind. We need some volunteers. Going forward into the spring, we don't need them now, but we would love somebody to coordinate gardening and landscaping and beautification. If you have a green thumb and you want to do that, please contact me. We need a couple of people for housekeeping. Kirsten's over there for all of these. You can contact Kirsten, she of the raised hand. And Paul, do we still need a couple of people for the live stream? So we need some camera people to help with the live stream for the people who are not here and for people who want to access these teachings after they're over. You can see Kirsten or me about that. If you wish to engage with this community in general, please consider volunteering. It's a fun way to get to meet people, and we get some stuff done. Then let's see, there are some other sits during the week. If this one is, if you like something a little smaller, we've got those. Details are on the website. We have spiritual friends groups that meet on their own schedules in neighborhoods. There's a list of those on the website. In terms of our charitable project that we do on a regular basis, right over there for that chest is for the Transitions Project. We accept donations, small donations of household items to help the homeless back on track with their lives. What's it? Yes, right now warm clothing, blankets, socks, hats, especially for cold weather. Any of those things would be appreciated, absolutely. And then we also have Dharma consults that we make available. Jim, are you available? Jim is available for 20-minute Dharma consults today after the Dharma talk. If you have an issue coming up in your practice or you want a quick on-ramp to developing a practice and you've never done one, you can see Jim today. If you can't do it today and you would like to do this, please contact me and I'd be happy to set up something for you with a member of the Teachers Council. And if you have any questions at all about this place and want to engage more deeply with it and figure out how, please contact me. My contact information is on the website. Thank you very much. I hope you have a splendid day. Blessings to you all. 7 minutes. Keep working on it.
This, dear friends, is a Burmese monk's bowl. It's iron, metal, covered in lacquer. It was mine when I was in Burma for 1 week back in 1979. Got a visa to get in and be with a very famous old monk. And did novice ordination and got to be in that scene, which was mind-boggling. At this moment, there's a retreat center in Rangoon, Yangon, I guess they now say, at which there are 3,000 and a few more meditators doing a month to 10 months of practice, unlimited practice. And if you wanted to go there, you just fly into Rangoon. You have to get your visa, but fly into Rangoon, go there, and they will completely take care of you. And the women sign up 7 to 10 months in advance in order to provide the food for 3,000 people every day. It's stunning. The understanding of the importance of practice. One image from that trip that was really mind-boggling for me was that there was this flock, would be all I could say, of college graduate age girls, all in these funny little pink outfits, and they were there. And they were the graduating class in economics from one of the big universities there. And they had decided that they would do a month of intensive meditation practice to celebrate their graduation. Different, huh? We're babies in this. We're just figuring out how to do it. And this bowl, it was very unusual. Tangpulu Sayadaw sent me with this. And I have my monk's robes in the room here. They never do that, I was told. And this has become a symbol of the placing in here of things like this and this are the way that we turn our work into Dharma. How we open the doors, how we keep everything running. And it's a really important part of our spiritual practice, this practice of opening and relinquishing generosity. I'm in a unique position. I guess the other teachers are now increasingly in a similar position. I'm in a position to hear people say, tearfully often, this place changed my life. I crawled in the door, I was freaked out, I was desperate, my partner had died, I'd been betrayed in this way or that way, and the political situation was driving me over the hill, I was suicidal, and what I got here changed my life. And that's not uncommon, in small ways and big ways. It certainly changed my life. And so when things change our lives, it's helpful for us, or it's so skillful for us to then help other people change their lives. So there's this bowl, and you can also contribute online. The Stewardship Circle is a monthly thing that comes out of your bank account. And there's many ways to give in terms of volunteerism as well. So please help support this mysterious, wonderful place. Something else that, what was it? Oh well, came and went. Would you, thanks Connie. Yeah. I'd like to underline Avi's nice invitation to the good, skillful invitation to the Saturday night, December 1st evening. We're anticipating the place will be crammed. They're advertising it in a bunch of different places. We're getting in 100 chairs. And that's 4 shortish videos or films on compassion and how compassion is essential in the Buddhist practice. And I'm told 3 of them are about practice in prison. So what a privilege to sit in this spot. I wish you could all sit here. Isn't it interesting and powerful to me how you can know over a great distance, like from here to you, you can know when someone else makes eye contact with you. Like in traffic, if you look over it, and you know. And you know, when you can tell when people are in a restaurant, they're falling in love, they're sitting and they're staring into each other's eyes, and we don't maintain eye contact for very long because it's so remarkably intimate. And I have a hunch and hypothesis of what that is, in that it's my mostly belief, a time or two experience, that there's only one consciousness. And that when it meets itself, something happens, sparks fly. It's like, whoa. And the extensive somebody training that we go through, and the storytelling mind that we create, then creates a layer of fantasy, a layer of imagination, a layer of emotion. That then we have a story that, oh, I'm now meeting you, and you're over there, which makes me think. In February, I think it's the 15th of February, Richard Lang is going to be here for that weekend. He's going to be doing a Saturday workshop and a Sunday doing practices around becoming aware of having no face. That if you think of it now, we could try one little experiment. This face is here. What's at your end? Do you experience a face at your end? I don't think so. I don't. What's at this end? It's awareness. And it's hard you can't take awareness and look at awareness, but you can kind of look around the edges sort of and be aware of, oh, right, there is seeing here. Seeing. And my experience when I do that is that whenever I remember, is that all the anxiety falls out. It's just seeing. So one of the things I'm going to ask for this morning is ask if you have any questions. But before then, I want to share an ongoing curiosity or observation that I'm having. Do you notice how so much of your suffering is utterly self-caused? The worrying, the remorse, the will this work, won't that work? Oh, I could brag for a moment. I was doing a 2-day construction project in my home. Always remember, don't stall on caulking the bathtub. Because if you let it go 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, it's not that big a deal. The floor beside and under the bathtub rots out. And then you can see into the into the mud below the house, and then the hardwood floor rots into the bedroom. But it gave me an opportunity to have some very interesting experiences building, which I love to do. Anyway, I completely blew it on a measurement for a piece of wood. And it was off by inches. And I noticed, oh well, big deal. I'll redo it. And then by the time I got back to the bedroom again, carrying the properly cut piece, I had this moment of realization, wow, there wasn't an inkling of, that was stupid. That's what I grew up with. That you made a mistake. That's this practice and all the other work that I've done, and many of you are nodding your heads, you know that these habits of mind that are so violent they're not solid. None of the conditionings of the human mind are solid. The thing is, it's vaporous. It's pretty darn repetitive, but it was such a nice relief. I remember actually the first time I was on one of these projects a long time ago. I had so much self-hatred, and I was doing a building project, and I dropped some screws down, fell off the roof, and as I was going, I just finished the project just when the rain started. And as I was going down the ladder, a spontaneous, "Good job, Bobby," Now, I've been prompting that for years, several years, but it came up spontaneously. It's like, whoa, even though I made some mistakes and blew it on some material, and this once we, if we can unearth things and get them into consciousness, these minds are highly malleable. Highly malleable. Plus the opinions the mind generates about others also become more malleable. An ongoing thing in my practice now is that someone will jump to mind, provoked or not, and there'll be this contraction. It's like, well, they did this, they did that, we're a bad person. And it's so obvious. It's getting more and more obvious. Like, why do that event happened 20 years ago. Why am I holding that belief about that person? It may have been an inaccurate perception at the time, and right now it's ancient. And so that kind of thing also, they get illuminated and then relinquished. So I think I'm going to see if you have any questions about your practice. Please, can you come get this? And if you will please speak into the mic. If you take this and point it at you, for some reason it's hard to do that sometimes. At you and hold it fairly close. And say your name first. A lot of stuff.
Hi, my name is Skylar. My husband and I just moved here to Portland.
Yay, from where?
From Idaho.
Idaho.
Yeah, and I've been looking for a meditation center, and I found yours, and I've been listening to the podcast like the whole week during work. And so I'm really, really excited to be here. And I did have a question. It's not necessarily about my practice, but it's been something that has been weighing on me this week. There was another shooting, and I'm trying to figure out how to grieve these repeated events without becoming a hateful person. And I'm trying to kind of meditate on how violence is an unnatural part of the human experience, but it's hard when these keep happening. I just wanted to know your thoughts. I know, heavy.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Yikes. Well, I could say a few things that popped up when you were speaking. One was, it's a long time ago now, some of you will remember, when England went to war, when Great Britain went to war with Argentina over the Falkland Islands. And it was a very dramatic thing. The news takes everything and turns it into... And so the British fleet was... The Falklands are claimed by Britain and by Argentina. They got a different name in Argentina. Anyway, there was this whole thing about the British Navy was steaming down there, and they were going to take the islands back, and in the end they did. And a lot of young people lost their lives. They sank a ship or two, but I happened to be going to visit Ruth Denison during that, and one of the first things I said to her was, well, what do you think about the war that's coming? And she, Ruth, who had gone through World War II as a beautiful young German woman in Prussia, including being captured by the Russians and raped more times than she could count, she said, they're always having a war. I work here at my center to deal with the roots of suffering, greed, hatred, and ignorance. And we help people come here, and people who come here put out the war in their own heart, put down, comfort the war in their own hearts. And so that's one thread for me, maybe the most important actually, which is that I am truly responsible for the greed, hatred, and ignorance of this person. And to use this person as my training ground to eliminate greed, hatred, and ignorance from the world affects the world, because it affects how I am in the world. And you said there's been another shooting. And there will probably be another shooting, and another shooting, and another shooting. There's no end in sight. And they happen unpredictably and in, you could say, odd places. I mean, why would someone shoot up a country and western concert like the one? So there's madness, there's human madness. And there's always been human madness. Some of you heard me say I traveled in Turkey with my daughter some years ago. Had a wonderful trip for 18 days. And the Anatolian Plateau is kind of like the doorway between Europe and Asia. And the armies went back and forth across that Anatolian Plateau all the time, including that person that generally is called Alexander the Great. He really should be called Alexander the killing, murderous psychopath. He left behind him it was like a field of wheat, but human beings just mowed down mercilessly for no reason except that he was a sick person. There are some sick persons on the world stage right now. And where to go with this? I've been believing for quite some time that we are at the stage of the decline of the empire. And when empires decline, the homeland has to take a big hit in standard of living. And we're seeing a big decline in standard of living. And we're seeing the distribution of wealth becoming more and more skewed, so there are more and more dispossessed people. Hence angry, hence the tensions there. And in this time, we have these incredible propaganda machines, and people getting siloed in these things, in their information. And so there are, and we can believe anything. We human beings, if I've never done this experiment, maybe I will. I know a person or two who have, and the results weren't good, but What if I were to tune in to alternate news sources and do just that for a week to 10 days to 2 weeks and see what happened? Because we are products of our conditioning and the stories that are told. So this is all tangential, sort of. So there are very sick people who think somehow that it's a good thing to go and kill people. I mean, the only possible explanation is mental illness plus bad ideas, right? Unskillful ideas. So how do we deal with it? And I think there are so many bad ideas out there right now. And a lot of them have a lot of power. And so how do I, as an individual, how do you as an individual, and then how do we as a community, how do we deal with this? One thing is band together. Help ourselves in our practice. Another that I practice is I have to titrate my dose of news. We see what the news organizations want us to see. And I remember a couple of years ago there was bad flooding somewhere here in the States. And a third of Pakistan was underwater. And there were like 10 people killed in flooding in somewhere here. And there were 10,000 or 60,000 people killed in Bangladesh with flooding. And so if we take our capacity to zoom in on the news, and we can blow ourselves out of the water, because there's so much. 160,000 people will die today on the earth on an average day. And that's aside from the big catastrophes. So our systems, our human systems, are not designed to deal with the level of catastrophe that's beaming in on the news all the time. So I think it behooves us to be careful how much murder and mayhem we take into our system. I mean, so one of the great skills that we develop in meditation is the mindfulness and concentration, two great strengths. And we develop them like, if I want to develop a bicep, I take a weight and I do this. And over time, we get so that we can concentrate way more and we're more aware. And there are other mental factors that come along with that. To be able to concentrate well enough to suppress all thoughts about the news and whatever emotional upset is happening, to be able to quiet the mind and go into this concentration place, that's a wonderful skill to have. Because sometimes we need to do that. We have things to do. Then that other pole, that opening, developing an awareness sufficient to notice the mind is turning toward an image I got from the TV. It's associated with a loss in my own life, and there's an emotion on its tail, and I could dive in there, or I could notice thinking. That's a level of mindfulness that's worthy of developing. To notice when, similarly, with any of our personal, emotional issues, being able to notice the mind, oh, here's the mind turning towards self-hatred. I think I won't bother. And then there's an intermediate place between those two, which is, let's use it with the news stuff. So here I am, I'm sitting on my couch, and I've just watched the news, and I'm feeling sad and upset and hopeless. To turn mindfully toward the sad and hopeless. And to notice, where else in my life have I felt that? Right? How is this triggering my earlier trauma? Well, I mean, that sad moment of American history recently with the Kavanaugh thing. Almost every woman I know was upset to blown out of the water, because every woman has been at least harassed, if not assaulted, if not more. And so when that news comes in, it sets off our own personal history, which then can be very useful in that if it's up and we can get adequate support, therapy, meditation, friends, then we can process through and be less caught in that trauma. But this is a challenging time. There's a lot of instability. There's an instability at the top. And so many of us are feeling unsettled. I think it's pretty normal, healthy. Did that address what you were asking? The key thing that I come back to, a little wave of sadness here, the key thing I come back to is we must develop our own practices more. I talked with one of our PMC teachers recently. I guess I can say this, yeah. Who recently taught a one-day retreat, and there were people in that one-day retreat who'd been around a while here at PIMC, and can you close the window, please, somebody? And they had, and they sat and they walked and they sat and they walked and they did maybe 4 hours or 5 hours of focused practice in one day. And there were people here who've been coming for some years who've never practiced that long before. And they experienced something new. And it made me realize, wait, we're doing these day-long retreats now, and I encourage people, come on a retreat. Something really different happens when you sequester yourself from the outside world, and the mind starts to calm down, and really calm down. Hang on, let me just get this. I'm going to start from the other end. What if it's true that what we all really are is the infinite consciousness of the universe? That we are, in Catholic or Christian mystic terms, we are God. What if that's not just a philosophical something, but really is true? And that we take birth as these humans and we go through, it's like we have our memory erased, we forget. And then here we are, and then we go through somebody training and we get traumatized, and then we're agitated and we're worried, profoundly worried about dying because it's coming. So we can meditate a few minutes a day, and it's very useful to help us calm down. We can meditate a few minutes a day, and we can become much more aware of our psychological and emotional processes and become kinder and happier and so on. And we can meditate on a more profound basis, and we discover that it's possible to with relative ease, drop out of anxiety or realize that depression is an activity. It's not who we are. That our personality isn't fundamentally who we are. There's a saying, and one of my teachers, Matt Flickstein, said, "Don't believe anything that you think. You are not any of your thoughts or emotions." I think that's true. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we could all just kind of wish that or take a pill and have that? But it doesn't work like that. It comes through stopping, watching the show, and in watching the show, and this is maybe not the right thing to say in marketing meditation, but it gets a lot worse. You're nodding. You were on retreat. It gets really awful. Because everything that we haven't ever wanted to see in our life will ultimately come smack dab in front of us. And if we have heartache that we pushed aside, we'll be in heartache. If we have rage that we never felt at that person who betrayed us or the person who intruded on us somehow, we'll sit on our cushion and just be angry. And to do that in company and with a teacher, what happens is it'll come up and then it gets, somehow or another, mysteriously, it gets processed through and we no longer take it so seriously, or it diminishes remarkably. And so we stop being, I used to have road rage. I watch people doing road rage and I think, good God, I did that? I was driving, coming into town, that road where you come up right in front of the Marriott Hotel from the south, I-5, and some guy cut me off. And so I chased him, sensible. And my mother-in-law had given me a black leather jacket, a flight jacket, and I felt kind of tough. So I got behind him and I jumped out of my car and I ran forward and I was shaking my fist at him in his window and yelling. And it suddenly occurred to me, what would the Sunday night meditators think of this? And then I thought, what if he gets out of his car? I am not trained for this. And that was actually the last time I acted out in that stupid, anything like that. But it's totally self-abuse to allow, to cultivate anger in that way. It's just awful. So, to practice often, and sitting is so important. Because I've really come to believe that the entire journey of meditation is all about relaxation. It's to relax and experience what arises, and relax and experience what arises, and to pay attention, really close attention. It's not to go unconscious and fall asleep, but relax, and that ultimately we relax into being the universe. That the self, the experience of self, is a contraction. And every little bit of self is painful, is grabbing, always grabbing. So again, in terms of your very helpful question, and this is related to our tiptoeing into maybe having some community, those who wish to be involved in some social action, something. To practice deeply enough to realize that everything's okay. Had one of my children been shot in the last week or month or 5 years, it'd be pretty hard to do that. It'd take a lot of work. A lot of work. But I've known a Vietnam veteran or two who has learned how to really relinquish his self-hatred for the things they did there. That it really is, on that pole, it really is okay. Now that doesn't mean that I don't work, even at the expense of one's life, to change things. But to do it from a place of non-reactivity and to realize that the opponent is another part of oneself. That, we have met the enemy and they are us. And it's true and we tend, and the ordinary mind polarizes, and they're like this and they're like that, and then we fight with each other, and then we don't communicate. But to meet, funny, I just remember one of my early therapists said, I was asking him how he practiced, and he said, I sit in this chair, and each person who walks in is the suffering Christ. That's how I want to see it. And what about practicing that with someone that you see on the TV who you really dislike? And you realize, this is an ordinary human being who's been terribly traumatized, and this is how they're adapting to their trauma. So there's compassion. One still might act to stop them. Or maybe, So I always feel a little anxious talking about things like this, because maybe because it's an anxiety-provoking topic, but also I don't want to be on a side, except the side of love and compassion. I want to be on that side. But really, the Buddha said, short of enlightenment, short of awakening, any human being could do anything, given the wrong or the right conditions. Right? If we were, years ago, I watched a documentary of families in a family in Northern Ireland, and they were training their children to hate the people from the south. And the people in the south were training themselves to hate the people in the north. And the same thing happens in Israel, Palestine, Hutu, Tutsi, Republican, Democrat, blah, blah, blah. That we train our children. We create this monster which demonizes the other. And it's no help. That's why we should all learn nonviolent communication. Nonviolent communication, which Kirsten is helping teach, and to really develop a meditation practice. And my prayer would be that everyone in this room, that you give yourself an hour a day. Yeah, please. If you can, of course. Test one. Please say your name.
I'm Margie. I just wanted to, the first thing I thought of when you said that about the violence was that yesterday I attended the Oregon Book Festival downtown, and there were thousands of people there who love books. So it's cross-political, and there's just the feeling of, and we're talking stories, and people are, writing amazing memoirs. So that, when your everything you said just reinforced the idea that they're really where we put ourselves and the energy that we're around makes a huge difference.
Yeah. So find ourselves in loving contexts and participate and be joyful about our lives. Right? Connie, please.
Hi, I'm Connie. I've been wanting to ask.
Closer.
I've been wanting to ask you for a while. My mom's been in hospice for a year now, and the personal grief level. I watched you change quite a bit after Ruth died for a couple of months, and so on a personal level, how do you deal with grief?
it was more like 5 months after Ruth, I became pretty dysfunctional. Quite surprising to me, I became quite dysfunctional. And what does that mean? It meant that the energy went from the ego down deep into the unconscious and was working really hard. So therefore, I couldn't do much work. I wasn't very, I could do counseling work because that brings a different part of myself up. But when I wasn't engaged with another person, it was dark, it was depressing, it was, and so if you cut yourself, it heals, doesn't it? If you take care of it. When a loss happens, the psyche wants to heal. If we give it time and space, it'll heal. It may require withdrawal, and there may be some depression, there may be some rage, but if we give ourselves the room and the support, it's a very natural process to go through it. And so I always tell people after a major death, if you can, take off at least a month. Now, of course, that not everybody can. And those of us, I was a primary parent, stayed home with my kids a lot. When you're a parent at home with kids, you can't take it off. But to find out whatever you can do to give yourself the space to be able to go soft and feel what's real. And then it naturally moves through. You know, when people are still intensely grieving a long time later, they haven't had the support they've needed to move through it, because everything moves unless it's frozen. We sometimes freeze things in resentment. So, is that helpful? Yeah. It's a time for banding together. It's a time for really practicing and for realizing that there's a lot of anxiety in the collective right now, and to really honor that. Please. I may have to be real brief because the kids are going to show up momentarily, but please.
Hi, I'm Jason. I just wanted to comment further on the grief topic, and I just find it really helpful to consider that grief is just the other half of love. There's no love without grief. They just really, they arise together. And there's some beauty, deeper beauty in that I find solace in.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Dare we have the audacity and willingness to take risk, to actually love each other, to actually connect in relationship and form bonds and attach in the healthy attachment way. Because the price of that is when the other goes away is nerve endings, raw. Stephen Levine was asked that one time at a workshop years ago. And he said something like, please let's connect, let's attach as fully in love as we possibly can. And then when the other disappears, all those nerve endings go home to God. Because the other, the person we fall in love with, is a stand-in for the universe. So, dare you, are you willing to really care about somebody? To really care, to become more and more vulnerable, to do the work that's necessary, to go deeper. It's rough. But in my experience, it's what makes it worthwhile being here. since the kids aren't in the chute, why not do this for a minute? Please turn around to each other and just make eye contact with a few people. And you might like to hold some kind of a loving thought as you do it. And I don't mean deep peering, if you want to, deep peering into each other's eyes, that's great. But it's not a staring thing, it's just a moment to acknowledge, I see you. I see you, and I'm glad you're alive here in this moment with me. And then let's come to our feet and maybe mill around for a moment and find somebody else to just see. Thanks. In a moment, the kids will come in and we'll do our sacred closing ritual. May I borrow this? Thank you. All right, let's make ourselves into a big circle. Here they come. Hi, Nisi. Hi, sweetheart. You want to sit here? Is that enough? All right. Oh. Hi. Is this your little bumpkin? Cute little ears. Hi, everybody. Hi. $1. We're going to burn it? You found it under a chair. All right. So please let us find a hand to hold. May I hold your hand? Thank you. You want to hold your daddy's hand? There you go. Yay. It's good to hold your dad's hand. So, a hand. Please give the hand on your right a little squeeze. Thank you for being here. And the hand on your left with a nice wish from your heart. And a wish for all beings. Beings of the human variety and our brothers and sisters of the air, the earth, and the waters. Our friends, relatives, and those persons we think of as the enemy. Let's wish them well. May they be happy and be touched by great love, compassion, so they don't need to act in the ways that fear makes us move. All right, then, who's going to sing the song? All right, passing over. Thank you.
May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you. Well, let's all take a giant breath. Now don't blow till the proper count. 1, 2, 3, blow. Yay, we did it. So please do come and schmooze. I will be absent next week. Jim will be teaching. And come to Seattle if you have a chance this next weekend. Thank you for joining us on the net. Thank you, Eric.